Hey everybody, Darrien Starling here, or AKA Starlo. Welcome to the podcast show. I had a topic that I kind of wanted to discuss just because I've been listening to a few MMA media outlets and some of the people I listen to, and the topic fight of the year has come up. It's around that time of the year. The last card is tomorrow, so everybody's kind of throwing out who they have, their votes for fighter of the year. And the only issue I have with what everybody's doing is it seems like they're only going to reserve the fighter of the year for a champion. Now, don't get me wrong. Last year, I think the consensus was Jorge Masvidal, and in my opinion, it should have been Israel Adesanya. And I'm kind of contradicting myself because Israel Adesanya was a champion, but it is a champion. But the run he went on last year was crazy. Hence, both of the guys ended up on the cover of the UFC 4 video game. Anyway, in this particular situation, I think everybody right now, the consensus is kind of Deiveson Figueiredo. Davidson, the God of War, he had a great year, phenomenal year. He just butchered Joseph Benavidez. Alex Perez choked him out, and then his performance, which is the fight of the year candidate with Brandon Moreno last week. Here's the thing: he didn't win the fight. I scored it for him. He had one judge that gave him the nod. The other two judges scored it 47-47, mainly due to the foul he committed whenever he kicked my boy Brandon Moreno in the balls. But if you take that point away, he wins on their cards as well. So I get it 100%. But I still like to go with someone who didn't lose, didn't have any draws or anything like that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a champion. But if it's not a champion, it has to be someone who made waves, moved up a lot, made themselves a contender, and then accumulated a number of wins in spectacular fashion. And that's exactly what Kevin Holland did. If you look at what he did this year, it was just very impressive. 5 times in a year. You don't get that from, look at Khabib Nurmagomedov. What is it, 3 fights in 3 years? Fights once a year? This guy comes out and fights 5 times. That's impressive. And then 4 finishes on top of that. I believe it's 4 finishes. Yeah. TKO in May against Anthony Hernandez. The vicious KO of Joaquin Buckley. Close decision with Darren Stewart. That was a tough fight for him. They've been talking about running that back, but okay. But then you come back and then you submit Charlie Ontiveros. I suck at pronouncing people's names, so forgive me. And then the impressive victory to cap off his year against Jacare Souza, his stiffest competition. Well, outside of Thiago Santos in his UFC debut. But anyway, to cap off this year, Jacare Souza, what a finish, first off. What a finish. I think everybody was worried as soon as Jacare took him down in the beginning of that first round. They were dry. And then Jacare is just nobody you want to play games with on the ground. We all know that. Kevin Holland was attacking, very active off of his back, and was a threat from down there, to be honest. And I say threat, but that's where he finished the fight, off of his back. He was throwing up triangles to land some vicious elbows, and then all of a sudden he created some space, got his feet on the hips, created some space, whipped his body around, and just generated an enormous amount of power in a position where it's kind of hard to explain how you can generate so much power. And he cracked Jacare, and then vicious ground and pound to finish him. what an impressive performance there, number one. And it's kind of just like, how do you not give that guy a nod? 5-0 this year, 4 finishes. Um, and listen, to everyone's credit, I think his name has come up a lot in the fighter of the year discussion with a lot of people in the MMA circles or whatever. But for me, I haven't seen anybody go with him over Figgy, God of War, and for me, I'm just like, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Kevin Holland did enough to get the job done, no doubt.